systems. So one of the important thing that we need to take care is that whenever when we have ICS, they should have a different performance and the reliability requirements. And they should also use operating systems and applications that may be considered unconventional in a typical IT network environment. To provide the similar traditional systems in every industries nowadays, it is very, very essential that we need to have a IT systems within the ICS, industrial control systems, for providing the better security features. So these are the various special concepts we are talking. Important thing is about the timelines and the performance requirements. Why we need to have? Because these are the systems, they are more vulnerable to a range of threats. So it may be a kind of threat like cyber threat, or it may be equipment we have, as we have.
The second side will now go monitor them.
Hello, any doubt? Is there any query,
Continue,
or
ma'am,
shall I
please.
continue?
Sorry, I muted. Continue. I muted
Okay,
this.
yeah, thank you.
person.
Okay, thank you. So
Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
so such type of systems are, since it is a kind of embedded systems where we have more hardware systems along with the IT systems, so they are more vulnerable to a range of threats. It may be a cyber attack, or some equipment malfunctioning could happen, and we have to think about natural disasters and sometimes human error as well, isn't it? So that's the reason in such type of systems, the security features are most important features which we need to consider and taken care of in such ICS systems. So here there are various factors which we would like to discuss about it with respect to the security features. The first and most important thing is about the timeliness and the performance requirements. Okay. So within a stipulated, whatever the performance, when I talk about the performance has to be, the performance can be measured in two different factors. One is the response time, another one is the throughput, isn't it? So the response time, that is very, very essential for any kind of systems, whether it is a non-IT based systems or a IT based systems. So that should be taken care along with the security features. And the second thing is availability, 24/7, that particular processes, any kind of industrial or automated processes should be available for the user all the 24/7. Right? And the third important feature is the risk management requirements. This we will discuss it in detail in the upcoming slides. Okay, so it is, there are two different types of risk. That is, whether we are going to manage or think about or take the necessary action with respect to proactive, or it is a preventive, right? So it is always better to have a proactive identification and then do the necessary managerial actions for such type of risk. So we need to have risk management requirements. First, you try to identify what are the various category of risk that is possible in such type of systems. Then we need to assess the risk. Okay, so what is the probability that this particular risk may occur, and what will be the impact of that particular risk if it happens? Okay, so risk assessment or the risk exposure is very, very important. And okay, once you analyze about the risk assessment, then we need to think about what are the various mitigation, monitoring, and the management plan which will help you to run the entire industrial process in a smoother way. Okay, so that is the most important factors within the security features. And then we have the physical effects. Yes, physically, how it can be harmful when the security features is not provided. Other factor. Then what are the various resource constraints? Okay, so resource constraints may be the infrastructure based or the available resources that is for that particular industries. And what are the various communication made to reach the data from one end to another data or any messages to be passed or the files or any kind of form of information that should be passed from one end to another. And whenever to be suggested in such type of systems, then how this entire either software or hardware change control management which has been defined. So there will be a person like whenever a project team leader, say for example, he is suggesting a particular change, then how the change control authority, he has to go through that particular request and he has to decide whether to approve that particular change in the system or to deny that. So if it has been approved, then what is the procedure? So this all things should be managed within this change management, and the continual support for managing that entire industrial process that should be provided. And we should have a lifetime. When you talk about the hardware systems, every hardware modules or the elements, they have a defined life period. Okay, so you can use it only for that particular defined life period. After that, it is the time to change that particular device. So we need to diagnose that at an earlier stage, and if you change it, then it can save various damages. That is another important factors. And the last one and the most important one is the component location, where you are locating each and every component, the place. Okay, and what is the requirement, the environmental requirement of that placing that particular component in the given specified area. So that is also very important. You need to take care while considering security features for such type of. So just going into detail more about risk management process. Till this, if you have any queries, then you can ask. Otherwise, let me continue with the topic. Any query? Four important components over here. The first component, which is a framing component, and the second one, which is the assess, and then we have monitor and respond. Okay, so here, this four important components in such type of systems. It can be for we can define these components even for the IT systems as well. Okay, and this has been defined with respect to three important tier. For the tier one, that is for the entire organization, how this four important elements are important and how it should taken care. And the second one, it is for defining your business processes. What is the mission of that organization? Or what is the vision of that particular organization, how it supports for the entire business processes. For that, we need to have all these risk management practices. And the third important tier, which is tier 3 about the information systems. Okay, so which is data management, how it should taken care, and the non-confidential informations, and if it is a sensitive or confidential informations, how that should be protected, what are the policies or the policies that should be defined for that, and that should be even we have to think about it during the risk management principles. So here, if you see, framing is basically we need to identify of all the risk factors related to the current system, wherever you're going to apply the ICS system. Okay, security features. And then followed by, you need to find out for each and whatever the list of risks which you have identified. For every list of risk, you need to assess the probability, what is the probability of that. So these are the two important parameters which you need to assess it, and you need to compute the risk exposure based on this factors, whether it is critical or it is medium or it is high, or what do you say, low and very low. Okay, so we can define it between the categories of this 5 categories. So we need to define how to respond if that particular risk happens. Okay. How to respond? So that means you have to well define your mitigation steps. Okay. And how to manage, should take the necessary action. And then, yeah, continuous monitoring is essential for that particular risk. If it happens, then how that should be managed. So we have a ICS security architecture. So it is always a corporate network. Okay, so this can manage your complete industrial processes with a IT-based systems. Okay, and here we need to have the internet access, or your, if there is any files just to be transferred via the FTP protocols, and related to the mails, that is via emailing or any kind of remote access, that should be permitted via the corporate network, but it should not be allowed through your ICS network. So this is different. So you out the corporate network so that you can provide a better security features in ICS systems. And suppose if ICS network traffic is carried on these, that it is more subjected to any kind of attacks. That's the reason it is better to have a two individual networks. Since when you have the separate networks, the security and the performance problems on the corporate network, it should not affect your other network. Okay, so that is the reason we try to have an individual network to manage. Suppose if the networks must be connected, then it is recommended to have a very minimal connections. That means we have to define a certain set of requirements that should be connected via both the networks. Otherwise, try to avoid that. And even that connection, when you are providing it between the two networks, see to it that the proper firewall or the required security features are incorporated. Okay, so it can be either demilitarized zones, or it can be via the firewall method. So demilitarized zones are nothing but it is a separate network segment which can directly connect via your firewall. Okay, so for that you can have this thing, but try to keep as minimum as possible if you want to do some connectivity between the two networks. So this is one of the recommended security features in industrial control systems. So when you apply the security features, then there are certain risk management framework tasks that can be defined for such type of systems. So let us say that we have, it is an iterative process, okay? So there are 6 steps which are defined. It can be iterative until and unless that the entire process has been satisfied, or for the better support or the performance of the system. So we have, the first thing is we need to categorize. I'll explain each and everything in detail again. So this is the 6 steps for the risk management framework. Okay. So first one is we need to categorize the information systems. So here, the most important thing is that we need to have a organizational inputs. That is about your business process, your organization mission, okay? And how your organization information system that has been defined. What are the laws? What are the various directives? Or what are the policy guidance that is provided? And you need to identify your organization, respective organizations as well. Apart, you think about the supply chain characteristic. That is the most essential input which you need to categorize it for any kind of organization. And also, we need to have a better or a systematic architecture description. It should have a very well-defined segment and the solution architecture, which satisfy your mission of the organization and the business processes. In addition, you have to define boundaries for your information system when you are building such type of ICS systems. Okay. So this iterative process consists of first categorization, and then we have to find out what are the security controls applicable for that recognized information system, each and every recognized information systems, and how to implement those security controls. So once you categorize the information system, you find out what are the security controls, and then we need to implement the same. And when you are implementing, you need to, before that, you need to do the assessment also, and then you need to authorize that particular control, security control, and then the last one, which is monitoring. So it is like all the steps which are very iterative process that has to be executed as a part of your risk management framework in the ICS system. Okay, so just to understand how this is carried out for any kind of organizations, so I have done a survey about a Hogo Next, which is an organization where they have this such type of systems. They have defined this entire 6 steps in a well-defined systematic manner. Okay. So it is like they first identified what are the assets. Okay. What assets that particular industry that they have it. So it may be a hardware or it may be a software system, or the most important factor is your data, isn't it? So this is your most precious element, we can say nowadays. So this asset, it can be hardware. Hardware can be a sensor devices, some field devices. It can be anything along with the controllers and the actuators. So software system, when I say, it can be your operating system or any kind of applications, mobile-based, web-based, or any user interface applications. And the data is just like what are the configuration information and the process information. And once you identify what are the threats that has been defined in your ICS system architecture, then we need to identify what are the possible threats. Okay. So it can be your potential threats, cyber attack, natural disaster, or it can be anything. Then you have to assess the vulnerabilities. What is the weakness in your ICS assets? Whatever the assets that you have identified, within that, what is its weakness or what is the possible threat that can occur? Okay. And then along with that, as I told you, you have to identify the impact of those. What is the probability of occurrence? Along with the probability of occurrence, you should be able to analyze the impact of that particular risk. Okay. And then we have to define the priority of each and every risk. Okay. So this is there. So first we have to define the results. Define the scope of the assessment along with the boundaries. What is the physical and the logical boundaries? Major objectives, stakeholders, who are the stakeholders, and the resources that is involved into it. For example, we can say, suppose my scope is to assess the risk to the SCADA system, which is controlling the water treatment plant. Okay. So if this is the thing, then how do I define the boundaries? So I can define the boundaries like it will include all the components of your SCADA system within a particular plant's perimeter. So I have defined a specific area, whatever the components are defined for the SCADA system, that is my boundary. And these are the components or the elements where I will have to focus on my monitoring or the control systems. So what is the objective of this particular system? I need to identify what are the critical vulnerabilities, have to prioritize the risk, and develop the mitigation recommendation. This is the major task which we need to take care. And who are the stakeholders? The plant operators, IT staff, or the security personnel, and the other management staffs. So what are the resources? We have 2 security analysts, we have a SCADA engineer, and we have a automated vulnerability scanning tools. Okay, some automated tools that can be used. So this is how we have to define. And for everything, then how we are going to identify and inventory the assets. So whatever the hardware, software, data, network topology, or the physical environment that you have defined for your ICS assets. Okay. So this is just an example that is provided, like in the wastewater treatment plant. What are the hardwares that may be required? What are the software systems? So we are using SCADA software, PLC programming software, operating systems, etc. And the data that is used are water flow rate, what is the chemical dosages that is applied, and what are the alarm logs, that log files that can be considered. And the topology that has been used is it is connected to the corporate network using the firewall. Okay. So this is a physical environment, the SCADA equipment, which is located in a central control room where we are monitoring the complete process. So how to identify the threats, for example. Okay. So we can identify the threats with respect to, say, for example, cyber threat. Cyber threat, it can be a malware, or it can be a ransomware, or it can be a phishing attacks, or a denial of service, distributed denial of service attack, isn't it? Because here multiple plants, the various field sites which are connected together. So these are the various types of attacks which are possible in the system. And what could be the environmental threats or the natural threats? It can be a flood, earthquake, or hurricanes, etc. What can be physical threat? There can be some unauthorized access, isn't it? Or it can be a vandalism or sabotage, etc. And there may be a operational threats also. Sometimes there may be a malfunctioning of any of the system component, or there may be equipment failure or some misconfiguration due to human error. It can be anything. And the other environmental factors could be electromagnetic interferences, power outages, etc. Okay. So this is how we have to identify the potential threat. So for example, in this system, we have identified the cyber threat as ransomware attack targeting the SCADA system. So what is the natural threat that we have identified, which is flood. So physical threat is there may be unauthorized access to the control room. And operational threat could be some misconfiguration that is happening within the programmable logic controller. Okay. And there will be environmental threat, like, for example, power outage, which can affect your SCADA systems. So once you identify the threats, okay, according to the risk management, then how we are going to assess the vulnerabilities. So there are multiple threats that is a vulnerabilities, like we have technical vulnerabilities, physical vulnerabilities, or operational vulnerabilities. Technical vulnerabilities are nothing but these are certain outdated softwares which you have used, okay, so which is not able to identify your latest malwares or the ransomware, any kind of latest threats which was unable to identify it because of the outdated software, or sometimes some incompatibility features, or unpatched systems, or sometimes it is insecure configurations which you have provided so that the hackers can easily attack your systems. Or maybe your encryption technique is not that strong while you are passing the data from one system to another system, so that easily it can be hacked. So whatever the encryption mechanism which you are using it, say for example, RES mechanism which is not functioning well in your SCADA system, then can I apply some asymmetric encryption mechanisms or hash functions? Can I use it in my SCADA system? So this is how you need to identify what are the technical vulnerabilities. And the physical vulnerabilities, as we know, it can be some inadequate access controls or some physical security measures, etc. And the operational vulnerabilities, maybe the people are not well trained to operate that particular systems or the machines, or some kind of hardware systems, or maybe even the software systems. Even if you are not able to train it properly, then they may misuse it, right? They may give wrong inputs, and which can create a damage. So there may be a lack of procedures or the change management is not well defined in such cases. So this can be any kind of operational vulnerabilities. So in our example, let us say the technical vulnerabilities are some outdated SCADA softwares are used. So they are with the known vulnerability, so which can easily attack your system. And the physical vulnerabilities, so say for example, the control room door was not locked properly, okay, so that any unauthorized person can enter into the control room and do the changes. And the operational vulnerabilities, it can be a lack of documented procedure for any kind of firmware update. Okay, so there is no proper documentation.
Yeah, but they have my friend. From the case.
Hello.
Sorry, ma, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you. And the last one, that is the fifth one, which is we need to analyze the impact. So this analysis can be with respect to safety. And what will happen? Suppose if we have identified the risk, along with that risk, what probability that it may occur, and what will be the impact of that? Okay. So if that particular set of risk occur, then the impact will be with respect to safety or operational, in environmental impact and reputational impact. Safety impact, when I say, it can be either injuries or some kind of damage, life, death, loss of life, isn't it? And the operational impact can be a disruption of production, some financial loss, or that can be a service may be affected, right? And the environmental impact can be there may be some hazardous materials which can be released, which can pollute the
Hello,
environment.
ma. Hello,
So which,
hello, ma.
yeah,
Yeah, I just want to be sure my screen is showing the right thing. The what you
yes,
shared, is it still are you still on the risk management process on the
okay,
screen? That's what I have on my screen. Is that correct?
yeah, hello,
Yes, ma. I said what I have on my screen is risk management process. That's what I still have
hello.
on my screen. I don't know. Hello, can you hear me?
Uh, could you please
Hello, ma.
repeat? Yeah,
Yeah, I said on my screen I have risk management process comprises of 4 components. Is that what you have on your screen?
yeah, I have this thing. What are the various risk and how to take the necessary steps for that?
Okay, I think maybe you need to reshare your screen.
Acha, I'll share it again.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, can you see it right now?
It's coming up. Because we for like 10 minutes you were not moving
Okay.
with it.
Okay, so
Okay,
I'll
maybe I
stop
don't know
it
if
over
you
here.
go back. Yeah, go
Uh,
back a little because we stopped at risk management system, the 4 components. That's where we stopped.
I'll just complete this topic and stop it, and then we can continue maybe in the next day.
Okay, but we've lost a lot
The
because
screen
yeah, the screen wasn't showing what you were teaching.
from number 1.
Okay, so you want to show me from the start?
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe from the number one of this part now
Yeah,
because
now
it
is it
wasn't your
visible
screen
to
was
you?
not moving. Okay,
Yeah, yeah. So I
we
was
didn't see all
showing
this
an
part.
example that in Hogo Next, how they have managed this
Okay,
risk assessment for the industrial control systems.
okay,
Okay,
okay.
so these are the main factors because I was discussing about the other factor that is in general architecture. That is about. One second. I have explained, yeah, I was explaining about this architectural framework, right, for the risk management.
Yeah,
There are 6
yeah. This is where
steps.
we stopped.
Yeah,
Okay.
categorize, yeah, select, implement, assess, authorize, and monitor. So how this
Yeah,
can be actually
we got this part.
implemented in ICS systems. So for that, I have shown you an example of this. That is how this
Okay,
has been taken care in such type of systems.
okay, okay.
Okay.
So next.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So here I was explaining about how the risk will be identified. First, we need to
Okay,
identify what are the assets in your organization, and we need to identify the threat, how to assess those vulnerabilities, analyze the impact, and then prioritize the risk. Okay. So with respect to this particular company, like we have taken a case study of the scope is like we need to assess the risk to the SCADA system, which is controlling the water treatment plant. Okay. So this is the case study that we have considered. Based on this, how to define
okay,
the scope of your case study, how to define the boundaries. So here the boundaries would be, I am including when I am implementing the ICS system architecture in such type of SCADA system. I need to include the components which are present within the SCADA system, but in the defined plant water treatment plant's perimeter. Okay. And that is the boundaries that I have defined. I'm not covering the entire, all the sites all over the country. So I've just defined within a particular perimeter, plant's perimeter. And the objective is to identify what are the critical vulnerabilities, prioritize the task, and develop the mitigation recommendation. That is my example. And the stakeholders who will be involved into such type of case study would be plant operators, IT staff, security personnel, and management. So the resources could be, we need to have two security analysts, a SCADA engineer, and a vulnerability scanning tool. So it can be any kind of automated tool which is defined in your organization, where it can monitors the for any vulnerability or the threats that is coming into your system. So this is an example as a case study I have considered. And for that, how to identify an inventory assets with respect to the risk management framework. First, we need to identify all the ICS asset. It can be a hardware component, software component, data, or what is the network topology and the physical environment. So based on the case study, we have identified the hardware as it is a PLC, programmable logic controller, which I have explained it to you earlier. And we have a remote terminal units. Since we have a different field sites, the input from the different field sites connected to your control server room, that is your central room, that can be connected via the communication medium, either using PLCs or remote terminal units, or using your human machine interface systems, any user interface or dashboard system. Along with that, we can have a Ethernet switches and the firewall. So you have to identify what are the hardware that is included in your system and what are the softwares. I have a SCADA software which is used to monitor and control your entire industrial processes. Along with that, we have the programming software, PLC programming software, and the operating system. And what will be the data that will be flowing? Since it is a water treatment plant, we have considered as a case study. So it is like water flow rates should be there, chemical dosages, and the alarm logs. Okay. Then we have the network topology, that is all the entire SCADA network to a corporate network by using a firewall. So this is a network topology that has been defined. And the physical environment is like the entire equipment which is present in your single control room. That is your locked control room, which we can define it. And once you identify all the assets in ICS system, we need to identify what are the various threats that is possible. So it can be a cyber threat, natural threat, physical, operational, or environmental threat. Cyber threats are nothing but it is like a malware, ransomware, or phishing attacks, or it can be denial of service attack or distributed denial of service attacks, etc. Natural threat, like anything which is natural disasters, like flood, earthquake, etc. And physical threats can be unauthorized access without a proper authorization. They are trying to access your machines or your systems. And the operational threats can be equipment failure due to some maybe misconfiguration of the files or some human error that has happened. Also, environmental threats can happen like power outages, electromagnetic inferences, etc. And in our case study, we have considered the cyber threat as ransomware attack, which can target the SCADA system. Natural threat, what we have considered is the flooding. The flood can damage your control room. Okay. So physical threats, unauthorized access to the control room. Operational threat can be a misconfiguration of the programmable logic controller. Okay. If any of the elements may be misconfigured, then that will also create a damage. Environmental threat can be a power outage, which is affecting entire SCADA systems. So this is, we have identified the threats. First, you have to identify the asset. Then you try to identify the threats and the vulnerabilities. Then what are the various vulnerabilities? It may be a technical, physical, or operational vulnerability. When I talk about technical vulnerability, it is like when you are using the outdated software, it will fail to detect the latest malware or ransomware, etc. Okay, or maybe due to the unpatched system also, it may create an issue. Sometimes it is incompatibility issue can also happen, or insecure configuration. And the most important thing is when you're passing the confidential data from one machine to another machine, there may be a lack of encryption techniques. The encryption techniques should be more powerful. Sometimes even the basic symmetric encryption technique doesn't work well in every system. So think about your organizational components which is used in the ICS system and decide the better encryption technique. And the next one is the physical vulnerabilities. It can be inadequate access controls or lack of physical security measures. Or we can have the operational vulnerabilities also. Because what happens is if your person is not well trained to use the system, then that is also creating an issue, right? So it is an inadequate training for your uh, person and the lack of procedures, or there may be a poor change control management defined in the organization. So these are the various operational vulnerabilities. So in the case study, what we have considered is technical vulnerabilities as outdated for software has been used, SCADA software with the known vulnerabilities. And the physical vulnerability that we have talked is it's an unlocked room. Okay, so anyone unauthorized person can also enter and do the damage. And the operational vulnerabilities, it is like no proper documentation has been defined. So it is a pure documentation which is uh, defined for the firmware updates. And the fifth step, that is analyze the impact. Okay. So once you identified all the threats, you need to find out what is the probability and the impact of it. The impact can be with related to the health or the safety impact of your person. It can be a injury or maybe loss of life, or it can be operational and environmental impact. Operational impact, when I say, it can be a financial loss or a service loss, or maybe entire disruption in the production unit. Environmental impact can be some kind of release of some hazardous materials or which can cause damage to the health of the people, or maybe a pollution which create in those regions. And the last one, which is a reputational impact, can happen. It may be a trust, the customer that they have it in your organization, or it is like a negative media attention will be provided, will be given, right? So according to our case study, it is like safety impact, contamination of the water supply is possible. Okay. So because of that, it may damage the life, and operational impact can be shut down of the entire water treatment plant. Environmental impact can be when you do the release of the untreated wastewater into the environment. Again, that creates a very great impact into the environment. Reputational impact may be loss of public trust in the water utility. Okay, and the last point, which is determining the likelihood. So we can have the different threats, threat actor capability, sophisticated cyber criminals, they are targeting the critical infrastructure. Okay, they are planning to attack this entire thing. And we have a historical data, that is a recent ransomware attack that happened on the water utilities. And we can have an industrial trends, increase of use of IoT devices in ICS, and we can have a vulnerability, severity, critical vulnerability that has been defined. And based on that, we can calculate the risk. What is the probability likelihood multiplied with the impact? We can define it into categorizations like high risk or whether it is low or medium risk. Based on that, we can prioritize the risk. Whichever high risk threats are defined, we have to give a necessary mitigation strategies like risk avoidance, mitigation, transfer, and acceptance.